Hello, Research Methods. This is Dr. Leslie Blair. I am your instructor for Research Methods in Criminal Justice, and I wanted to provide walkthroughs for you for the SPSS assignments that I've assigned you this semester. So the first one, you're going to navigate to Assignments and scroll down until we get to the SPSS Labs. And I'm going to go ahead and click on SPSS Lab number 1. So SPSS is a proprietary statistical analysis software. So it's created by IBM. We have access to it here at Metro State through either our on-campus computers at any of the campuses and also through the virtual lab, which I will walk you through. So you can complete your SPSS lab assignments at any Metro State University campus computer, be that at Brooklyn Park campus or at the St. Paul campus. You can also get a 14-day free trial of SPSS through IBM. Now, if you do that option, you will download it to your own personal computer, but it's only a 14-day trial, so you have to complete all of your SPSS assignments within those 14 days. All of the SPSS assignments are open and available to you now. You're welcome to work ahead. Even if you don't use the free trial offer, you can work ahead on the SPSS assignments and get them all done at once. And as you see, there's a bit of a learning curve with SPSS and the virtual computer lab, but once you get the hang of it, they go pretty quickly. So you might decide that you want to work ahead and just get them all taken care of all in one go once you get the hang of SPSS. So the first thing I want to do, since it's probably the way that most of you are going to access the SPSS software, is walk you through the virtual lab. So in every single one of the SPSS assignments, I have this link here that will take you to Metro State's virtual lab instructions. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And I'm not going to read through all of this. I'm just going to scroll down to the things that you need. So you have a couple different ways you could install the virtual lab software on your computer. I'm just going to walk you through the web browser route just because that's an easier way to do it. So I'm going to click on Access Virtual Computer Lab via web browser. And so now this page gives me all of the instructions to log in, but will kind of go away once I click on this browse to this first one. So I'm going to look ahead here. And it's suggesting that I click on this second thing here. I think they've changed the name of it. So when we click, it'll look a little different, but it is the one on the right-hand side. I'm going to click on this. Now scroll down. So now I'm going to click on this one, the web client on the right-hand side. And now I'm going to enter my star ID and password. Okay, so I'm going to click on this first, My Lab. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this full screen warning because I want to show you something if you don't choose full screen. You can absolutely choose full screen and say okay. If you say okay here, it's not going to change a whole lot. And I'll kind of talk about what it changes once we go through this process. But I'm going to say cancel here. But it needs microphone and camera permission. I'm fine with that. So I'm going to go ahead and say okay. I think you have to say okay in order for this to work. So go ahead and say okay. And now I think it's asking me again so I'm going to say allow this time. Okay, so what you can see here, and this is what I wanted to show you because it's not full screen. So what you see here is kind of a computer desktop within your desktop. So if you look down below here, at the very, very bottom is my desktop. So this is my personal computer desktop. And you can see I have a PC. So there's a little Windows icon in the bottom left-hand corner here. But if we go up a little bit, now we kind of see this desktop of the virtual computer. And so there's another Windows icon here. Metro State uses PCs as well. So it's going to be a Windows icon. And that's what you're going to click on to gain access to all of the software that you have access to through Metro State. So this virtual lab has tons of different kinds of software. So feel free, I mean, as a Metro State student, you have access to all of this. So I'm going to click on this. and then select all so you can see all of the software. And I'm just going to scroll down here. I'm going to grab this over here so you can see where I'm scrolling. I'm going to just scroll all the way down. So you're going to find SPSS under I because it's made by IBM. So here's IBM. And you want this IBM SPSS statistics folder. So I'm going to open that up. And then it's going to be this first one, IBM SPSS statistics. So I'm going to open that up. And you'll notice that SPSS takes a long time to load. That is completely normal. Even if you are on a physical computer and not using this virtual lab, SPSS just takes a very long time to load. So whenever you open up SPSS, it will automatically open this Welcome to IBM SPSS Statistics window. It's kind of just got some information on it. I honestly usually just close out of it because you'll see it also opened automatically a blank spreadsheet. So I've now made this larger. So in SPSS, this is a blank SPSS workbook or spreadsheet, or however you want to refer to it. There are two main tabs that you want to pay attention to. It's going to open by default to this data view tab, and you see that in the bottom left-hand corner here where my cursor is. So data view is where you enter and view any actual data. If we're starting with a blank SPSS data set, we need to create variables. So that's done on this variable view tab right next to it. So if I click on that, this is where we create variables in SPSS. So that's what you're doing in this first lab assignment is I want you to create a small data set using SPSS just to give you an idea of how to create variables in SPSS and then how to enter data in SPSS. The rest of the semester, we're going to be working with an existing data set to run basic analyses and things like that. But this first one, I wanted you to create your own data set so that you could have a better understanding of how this whole process works. And you can also click on the link that I gave you to the YouTube video if you want a little bit more explanation of the basics of SPSS. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through creating the variables that are outlined in the instructions for SPSS lab assignment number 1. So to create a variable, you're going to click in this first cell here under the column name. And the first variable name is gender. So I'm going to go ahead and type gender there. And if I hit tab, everything else will populate to a default. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit what these defaults are. So the second column here is type. Numeric is fine because SPSS is a statistical package. It works in math, and math speaks in numbers. So numeric is what we want here. This next column, width, is you can leave that as the default. The next column is decimals. It defaults to 2 decimal places. You can certainly leave it there. I personally, since I don't often work in decimals, I like to just put it down to 0 just because then it gets rid of all of that extra, but not a huge deal either way. This next column is one of the more important columns. So I'm going to make it a little bit wider here. So the label column is where you want to put a description of your variable. So the naming of your variable, this first column here, you need to name it something pretty simple. You'll see with our next variable, you also cannot use spaces for your name of your variable. So because there are all these restrictions on how you can name a variable, it's a good idea to put in your label column here a description. Gender is fairly self-explanatory, but I'm going to put this here anyway because it is a good habit to get into. So I'm just going to say gender of participant. Now, the next column, values, is probably even more important than the labels column. The labels column, you can get away with not putting anything there. In fact, a lot of people don't put anything in the label column. However, this values column is incredibly important because this is where we tell SPSS what the various numbers mean. So you can see here when I clicked, I'll click away again so you can see again, when I click within this cell here on this column, values column, you'll see the ellipses button appear. You want to click on that ellipses button because that will open this little dialog box here where you can enter in all of the numbers and their corresponding labels for the variable gender. So I'm going to hit this plus button here to add one. And so according to our instructions, we're going to have the value 1 equal male. And then I'm going to hit the plus sign again. And 2 equals female. And then if I hit enter, that does the same thing as the plus. 3 is non-binary. Enter. And 4 is other. Now, once you have all of those in place, you can go ahead and say OK. And then you'll see that they are now filled in that column. If you want to simply view them or if you need to change them, you can click on this ellipses again and it opens up that same dialog box. And go ahead and cancel that. All right, so the missing column, you can ignore that for now. That it serves a very important function in larger databases, but it's not something that you need to concern yourself with. Essentially what it does is you can assign number values to missing data. So when you do surveys and things like that, as you probably have done in your life, sometimes you skip questions and that would be missing data, right? We can't guess what a person might have said on a question they didn't answer. So we need to assign a missing label for it. And then what SPSS does when you tell it what your number or label for missing is, it drops any of those from any calculations that it does so that those missing values don't skew your statistics in any way. Usually people do a number like 99, sometimes -9. You want it to be a number that's not going to naturally show up in your data. So that's why 99 is often used. A negative number like -9 is sometimes used, but you don't need to concern yourself. That's a little bit of a, we're not going to be working with that. Columns also, you can go ahead and leave that at its default. Alignment, you can leave that as its default. The measure, if you click in this one, you'll see there are 3 options. Those roughly correspond with the levels of measurement that we will be talking about later in this semester. So a scale measure is what you will learn later on is ratio or interval levels of measurement. And then you'll also see ordinal and nominal, which are the other levels of measurement that you'll learn about later on. And then this final column role, you can leave that as the default as well. So that is our first variable, gender, created. So the next variable is that how safe variable. So first of all, we're going to name it how_safe. Like I said, SPSS doesn't let you do spaces, so an underscore is a nice way of creating that space. And if I hit tab, that auto-populates everything else. I'm just going to tab across to this label. So now here's an example in this variable of when a label is a really important thing. So how safe, it gives you an idea of what this label is, but particularly with survey questions, it's a really good idea to put the full question in this label. That way, when you're looking at these numbers or you're doing data analysis, you don't have to go and try to find a copy of that survey. You will have the exact question that these people are responding to right within your data set. So I'm going to go ahead and type in here, how safe do you feel when walking alone at night in your own, your own neighborhood? Now the all-important values. So again, we have that cell highlighted. If I click on it, then the ellipses will appear, and I click on that ellipses, and here we go. Now we can start creating our labels for our variable attributes. So going back to the instructions, we see that the number 4, oh, see there you can see how I did not change the decimal, so you can see how now the 4 has the 2 decimal places there, which again is fine, not a big deal, normally something that I change, but it's not a huge deal. So 4 equals very safe, and then hit enter. 3 equals safe. Enter. 2 equals unsafe. 1 equals very unsafe. And 0 equals no response. Okay, now that you have everything looking like this, you can go ahead and say okay. And once again, you can see now that those, here if I can make this column wider, you'll see that those values are now there. And it only gives us the preview here, but again, if you click within that cell, the ellipses button will appear again, and you can view all of your value labels. And then if you need to change something, you can change something, or you can just close out of it and not change anything. And that will come in handy later on in one of the other SPSS Lab assignments you will have to do. Going across, you don't really need to change anything. On this first variable for gender, actually, I should go back to that one and change it to nominal. As you'll learn later on, gender is a nominal level of measurement. How safe? Again, you don't have to change these things. I'm just going to go ahead and change it to, I'm going to call it an ordinal level of measurement. You could possibly call it a scale level of measurement. Again, these things aren't too huge of a concern for you right now. So now we have created both of the variables that are needed for this lab assignment, gender and how safe. So now the variable view is complete. And if we go back to the data view, now we can see that these two columns are the variables that we created. So that first column is the gender variable and the second column is how safe. So now what we do in the data view, this is where we enter the data. So if we look at our worksheet for this assignment and in the instructions, you'll see that there are 6 sets of made up information from these fictitious surveys. One thing about entering this data that I want to make very, very clear is there are 2 different ways that you can enter data in SPSS. It defaults to entering it via numbers. So when you're entering a lot of data at once, it's kind of nice to be able to just enter with numbers. And because we just assigned numbers, we could very well enter just using numbers. So for example, our first respondent is what we would call them if it's a survey, they responded to the survey, so they're a respondent. The first respondent was male and said that they felt safe. And that, for gender, male corresponds with 1, so I'm entering a 1 there. And if I tab across, then how safe, he said he felt safe, so how safe is 3. So I can just enter 1 and 3. And then I'm done. That is the data entry for that first respondent. But to make things easier, you can also enter data via a drop-down menu. And to toggle between these 2, there's a button up here across the top. So if you can see my cursor, there's this button here that looks like a couple arrows pointing, and one is pointing to a 1 and the other arrow is pointing to an A. That's how you toggle between entering via numbers and entering via a drop-down menu. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And you'll see that when I did that, SPSS automatically changed from the numbers to their corresponding answers, if you want to call it that. So now if I want to enter the next person using the drop-downs, I'll click in this next row here, because that'll be our next respondent, and we can double click in that cell, and now we have a little drop-down menu. So that second person was female, and they felt unsafe. So again, you have to click twice to get the drop-down menu. So she felt unsafe. Going down to our third respondent was female, and she felt safe. So again, notice how I'm having to click twice in each of these cells to get my drop-down. Our fourth respondent identifies as non-binary. I'm clicking there twice. They said that they felt very safe. And going down to our fifth respondent, they were female. And this female said that she felt very unsafe. And finally, our last person here said other for their gender. and responded to the how safe question. Oh, they didn't respond at all. No response. So there we go. That is the completion of your first SPSS assignment. So for this first SPSS Lab assignment, you will need to upload this whole little data set that you created. So we're going to go to File, Save As. We're going to save it somewhere where you're going to remember it. That's going to be on the desktop or something like that. Save it somewhere. You can give it a name that you're maybe going to remember. And then just notice that it's this .sav file is what we're saving it as. And then go ahead and save it. And then you're going to upload that file to the Dropbox on D2L. So be sure if you're doing this on a virtual lab, you're going to want to do that at the same time you complete it. That way you won't lose it, you won't forget where you put it, various things like that. So go ahead and upload this to D2L. Alternatively, if you're not comfortable with trying to find where you saved it, you could also do a screenshot. But for this first assignment, if you're doing that, if you're just doing a screenshot, be sure to give me a screenshot both of the data view and also of the variable view. I want to see both of them. If you're uploading the .sav file, if you're saving as and uploading the .sav file, that's fine. I'll automatically be able to toggle between them. And that's it. That is your first SPSS Lab assignment. See you next time.